It's gonna be a good one.
It's gonna be a good one.
Definitely a different type of process.
Cut down or freeze up.
Being a coach's son.
Jackson, of course, they keep retooling. One stolen base, a hit by pitch. Oh my goodness. Hello, everyone. Welcome inside the Red Earth Production Studios for this edition of YBMcast, powered by Game 7 Baseball, Game7Baseball.com. Today, we have some baseball talk with our good buddy from Prep Baseball Report, Kevin Moulder. Mr. Moulder, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was great. How about yourself?
It was fun. Ate a lot of prime rib.
Nice.
Yeah, it was very good. Mashed potatoes. Always do these portobello mushrooms and onions in a red wine sauce. It's fantastic, man. Yeah.
Nice. Sounds good. I'm getting hungry again.
Yeah, my father-in-law takes pretty good care of us over there, so I'm pleased with that.
Nice.
Yeah. How was yours? Did you guys do the traditional turkey and stuff?
We had traditional turkey. Yeah, it was good. Sweet potatoes and mashed potatoes and bread. Yeah, pumpkin
Green
pie.
bean casserole, right?
I didn't have any of that this year.
Wow.
I apologize to you. I see I offended you.
No. No, actually, vegetables are not usually on my menu. But I will eat the green bean casseroles with the French cut green beans in it. I will do that. But I'm not a vegetable guy, really. It's bad, but I understand. I just never have been, man. Meat and potatoes, and that's fine. I'll take the supplement, right?
There we go.
All right. Game 7 Baseball, real quick, guys. Winter workout tour right around the corner. Go check out the winter meetings that we just had with Dave Penning if you want. It's up on the channel right now. Wait till you're done here because we got some cool stuff. But go check it out. We talked about a lot of things. We got some new stuff coming up. We got one more winter meeting with Dave Penning before we hit the road. We're going to be in Springfield, Missouri, January 10th, 11th. We're going to be in Columbia, January, I think the next weekend. I think it's 17th and 18th, something like that. And we're going to be down. Kevin, I'm sure you'll probably be down there for this, but we're heading down. We got a booth that we're setting up at the Missouri High School Baseball Coaches Association clinic down there in Lake of the Ozarks. Looking forward to that. That third weekend in January. Going to be down there with our good buddies over at Missouri American Legion Baseball. Tom Rhodes, the state chairman. We're going down, talk to coaches, have some fun, get to know some more coaches down there. That's my goal, is always to meet more high school baseball coaches so we can talk a little more intelligently about high school baseball, right?
Absolutely. That's always a great event.
It is. And even talked with Coach Perkins. Maybe we'd do some, recording of some of the clinic stuff and whatnot. So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes up with that. It'll be fun. Be a lot of fun. And then we're finishing in Nashville that last January 31st, February 1st. Always a great trip. We're going to be doing our live sessions. We got starting off at the Hitting Zone, live Tuesday. We'll be at Recruits Baseball live the following Tuesday, January, I believe it's 14th. We're 7th, 14th, 21st down at Champions Village, 28th back at Rawlings Training Center. We're working on a couple more to finish that out. We're going to be with Premier Pitching Performance. I'm looking forward to our winter workout tour. A lot of good stuff, a lot of fun stuff going on, traveling around and getting out into the baseball community. So check out Game7Baseball.com. All there are great partners, and they got the tournaments up now. Super 7 14U. If you want to get into it, please get in, register. We got the 14Us coming to Warrenton, to the WAC. We're going to be having some fun with that. Game7baseball.com. That's where you go. All right, Kevin, let's get into this. I first want to talk about, because the subject we're going to talk about leads to this. We've got the big premier events coming up. I know you do a lot of scout days. Are most of the scout days you do with clubs, or do you do some high schools, or is it JUCOs? How does that work, man?
They are all well. We do a JUCO circuit in the fall, but that's all to get them ready for their fall season, which is a huge time for the junior colleges. But yes, all of our high school scout days are with the clubs and organizations across the state.
And then you have there's 3 events coming up in February that kick off. The one in Kansas City, the MoCan preseason, that's Super Bowl weekend. Then here in St. Louis, it is the
February 22nd is our preseason all-state.
But you also have, there's also the preseason ID in Kansas City, correct?
We do a preseason ID in Kansas City. That is Sunday, February 16th. And then the next day, we had the St. Louis preseason ID on President's Day, the 17th, Monday the 17th.
Now, what's the difference in the preseason ID than the showcase, the all-state showcase piece?
The all-state, the preseason all-states are an invite-only event. So you have to be invited to that. The event is ran very similar. You still get most of the same stuff. A lot of the indoors are dependent on size and space, so the running can vary a little bit, but that's not necessarily because of the difference in event. It's more in the winter, and this goes for the scout days as well. Some teams, have bigger spots, and we can do pop times, for example. We can run a 60, some we can run a 30. So you kind of have to make do with what's available with the facility that you have.
I gotcha. And so the IDs, that's just for anybody that wants to come? Is that the difference in these two?
Yeah. Anyone that wants to come. Sometimes we have guys that can't make our preseason all-state due to a basketball game, or they were sick, or a variety of different reasons, and the IDs are a nice thing to come to. Or maybe they missed their organization's scout day, or maybe they wanted to do another event. They felt they had an off round of BP during their scout day or whatever with their club, and so they'll come to the ID. A variety of different reasons, but they're strong events. Have had good turnouts to both the St. Louis and the Kansas City preseason IDs, and looking forward to them this February.
Now, the IDs, this is a good opportunity for 28s to get a first feel of a showcase type piece, right?
Phenomenal time for a freshman and sophomore to come out, go through this showcase. The other great thing about this, especially for the young guys, they're going to have high school tryouts in like a week or two after this. So this is a good way to kind of simulate, maybe having a little pressure, some intensity, doing a lot of the things that you're going to be doing at a high school tryout. Also kind of lets you know where you fit in right at this time. This is where my numbers lie. Kind of gives you an idea heading into high school tryouts.
Yeah. So, folks, if you want to check it out, Prep Baseball, you can go to prepbaseball.com, I believe it is. Yep, prepbaseballreport.com. Click on the Missouri tab. Check it out. See if it's something that's of interest to you, because what we're going to talk about today, the 2026, Kevin, you just said you updated them this morning.
Yes.
Now,
The story isn't even out yet.
so we've got some pretty cool stuff for you here today. And with this, we're going to look at the 2026 because I think it's interesting and why we're talking about the IDs and the stuff that's coming here. Because we've been talking about this stuff for what now? 2 years? More than that, Kevin? My goodness.
About the 2026s?
No, just about this type of, about the metrics and the measurements and all the stuff that goes into how to get recruited, what the opportunities are. We've been looking at these 26s for a little while as well, as far as that's concerned, right?
Right.
And this is, I think, their opportunity to make an impact on their varsity squads. Some of them probably already have, I would imagine, probably a handful of these kids, like I think a Brendan Pyle, Cooper Strum over at Belton. I think, we've seen these kids since their freshman year making an impact on their varsity squads. So, it's a little bit up and down that way. It just depends on the school you go to, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. And a good number of these 2026s in particular as sophomores made an impact, with their varsity clubs. And, that is the challenging thing about the rankings. Now, with the 25 class, it's not, it is so much better. But, the top part of the list typically has played varsity baseball. When you get down past that group that has played for varsity, your only time you've seen those guys is at events, maybe at a summer tournament over at Creekside or Home Field. So there's just not as much on their resume. So it really does help when, because we're out all spring watching varsity high school games. I'm always the first to admit we don't watch any JV baseball games or freshman baseball games. There's just too many teams and games going on for us to get around to see the freshman and sophomore games. So we put all of our attention to the varsity baseball. So we talk most about the guys playing varsity baseball.
I'm going to put in a plug here for our Baseball 101 for tomorrow. Darren Sissel has Coach Pat Evers from Maryville coming on the show. Nope, that's next week, isn't it? I'm sorry, Drew. I jumped the gun a bit. That's next week, so it's still a shameless plug. It's just next week. So, I think these are some of the things that are interesting in what we're trying to do. So make sure you're subscribed. You're following us on social because we got some great stuff with great conversations. Actually, tomorrow is the other conversation with you and Darren that you guys just recently talked about with the JUCOs and things of that nature, Kevin.
Nice. Yeah, that was a good one. We've had a couple fun ones.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of new information out there right now with the recruiting, and I mean it's changed year to year. Really since the COVID time with the rules and the NCAA and things it's tough to keep up with. So there was a lot of good information coming out with that one with Darren.
Yeah, so make sure you check that out tomorrow. Kevin's on with Darren Sissel talking about this recruiting, and I think this goes hand in hand with what we're talking about. I want to. Tyler Putnam sits right at the top of this 2026 list, and for good reason. He's a mid-80s fastball, and talk a little bit about his metrics in this respect and what that means as a Tennessee's looking at this, Kevin.
Yeah, and to correct, there was a mid-90s fastball you meant.
Sorry.
Yeah. You get people riled up here, Brian.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Tyler, there's a lot of great guys at the top of the list or towards the top of the list or even just on this list, and Tyler kind of separates himself with his size and athleticism. He's a big-time basketball player. He's 6'5", super projectable, has present velocity and future projection as well. It doesn't appear that he is finished. Um, he actually had the top velocity at the Future Games this past summer. So that was kind of a cool little feather in the cap for Team Missouri, as we had the top velo arm at the event. There's a lot of upside to him, and like I said, it's not hard to see. This isn't me being a genius. This is just me not getting in the way type thing. So he's a projectable one. He's going to be a fun one to keep an eye on over the next 2 baseball seasons to see where things lead into for the draft, because as things are trending now, he will be on draft radars for next year. This summer will be huge for him as he kind of gets into the start of that draft process. But he's a guy that will most likely be heavily scouted following year.
And as I'm looking at this, I think this is one of the things, and we'll get into some other players, but we talk about these events if you're preparing, and here's a young man that is at the top of the scale, and I want to go down. We're looking at a Preston McCracken next here, who is down at the list. He's ranked 28th in his class in the state, which is still very good. I mean, yeah, ranked 28th, right?
It means you're one of the best players in the state.
Exactly. But there's, when you look at this, he's 6'3", 193, but he's a upper 80s top velocity, 89 miles an hour range there. And there's some difference in the metrics. Talk a little bit about these things, and it's not far off though, is it? And when you're looking at projectability, where does he sit within that construct?
Yeah, this is a great example because these guys are both very similar in a lot of ways. They're both two-way players. They both play infield and pitch. I favor their pitching over their positional playing in terms of their long-term future. Professionally and even in college. But that's not to say they won't hit in college. I like both of their arms. They're very similar. Good athletes. Their velocity's relatively close. Their projection's relatively close. It's just that this is a great example of how you could show up one day and watch Tyler Putnam and show up the next day and watch Preston McCracken, and McCracken could be better that in that little window. But there's a little more projection in Putnam. Obviously, the velocity is a little better, but the gap is minuscule and very hard to see, especially to an untrained eye. Preston McCracken's very, very good, and which is why Missouri State obviously got him committed. But the gap is very small, but you can kind of see that's how tight of a window there is between number 1 and number 28. And there isn't much of a difference is my point.
Yeah. Kevin, one of the things I want to look at with this, especially as we're talking about this, and we're using these two here, they're both right-handed pitchers, similar in build, one's a little taller than the other. And you see spin rate on McCracken on his changeup at 1478. Whereas with Putnam, you see that changeup is in the 2102 range. Now, when you're talking to kids and when we see kids, and I've talked to kids at your events and things like that, what's the progression? We're here in September, or at the beginning of December. The event is in February, towards the end of it. You're getting ready for high school. How should kids view these things? Is there something in particular that, if you're looking at this, if you were just on the outside, I'm not trying to say you're going to go tell these kids this and that, but if you're looking on the outside, or if you're the coach and whatnot, and you're talking to, say, McCracken, what are the things that you would say to him? Say, look, these are the measurables that if you want to get to this next pace, where would that be, and how is he working on these things?
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. First, I would say these events are going to be different for different guys. For a younger guy, freshman, maybe even sophomore, this is just a good chance to get your first taste of the recruiting process and to kind of get acclimated to the events and kind of see where you fit in. Get a opening measuring stick to see where you land. As you get into your certain sophomores and certainly all juniors, this is when we're making a hard push towards becoming attractive to colleges from a recruiting standpoint. Seniors, some of them are still trying to be recruited. Others are trying to get national or attention from the professional side. And also, it can also be used as, a sort of a training tool, kind of a checkup. Hey, I put all this hard work in from the end of fall ball to the beginning of March. I want to see where I am. I want to see what type of gains I've made. This is when you can come use our technology to help you out to see where your metrics land. Now, you touched on the spin rates. Spin rates can be very tricky, and they are exactly what they are, but you're looking for outliers. And when I say they are what they are. If a guy has a 2200 spin rate fastball, that's fine. That's close to big league average, 2200, 2300. Outliers are good. So it's not necessarily the more spin that I have, the better. A guy that like Jordan Hicks is a perfect example. Former Cardinals closer, 101, 104, whatever it was. One of the hardest throwers in baseball. He actually had a really low spin rate, which made him really unique. A lot of hard throwers are high spin rate guys. Low spin rate also can be very good. A lot of times those are sinker ball type guys. But if you find a guy with a firm fastball that's 1800, 1900 spin rate, that's really good. That's an outlier. That's not normal. Same thing on the other end. If you see a fastball with 2500 spin, 2600 spin, that's an outlier. That guy's going to pitch towards the top of the zone with riding. That's the so-called rising fastball as it appears to the hitter. It doesn't actually rise,
Right.
but to a hitter standing in the box, it gives that appearance because it doesn't drop as fast as a normal pitcher's or an average fastball drops. And let's say you're 2250 on your spin rate, which is almost dead smack right in at the middle of that. That's as average as we can be, basically. That doesn't mean you're not a good pitcher. If you command it, your fastball could still have life or run. It could still be released from different angles. Induced vertical break, which is kind of measuring how high it is to where it finishes. And that's not even talking about your secondary pitches. So you could be right in the middle of spin rate and still be the best pitcher in the state. And you could have the highest spin rate and be a bad pitcher. And you could be a low spin rate guy and be the highest velocity guy. So there is, and we could do a whole show on spin rate and not, multiple shows on it. It is a very complex thing. Overall, I would say most time we want to improve spin rate, especially with like breaking balls. In general, the more spin, the better. But changeups, for example, are a pitch where typically those are a lower spin rate pitch. So like a 1400 on a changeup is good. That's not a bad thing. Generally, you're not going to see high spin changeups. So there's a lot to unpack there. It's very complex, and that's one thing that we do with our website, and we have stories because we give and provide players and parents a lot of information, that's great. You got to know what to do with that information as well. And so
Yeah.
that's the other piece of it, why our profiles are so phenomenal, because the parent of Joe Smith doesn't necessarily know everything that's on there, but the college coaches know, the pro scouts know when they pull up that profile, and instead of the parent or even the high school coaches or like, not all the coaches fully understand it, and it's not an insult. If the numbers are out there, then no one even needs to really talk about it. The coaches can get on there, see the kid's profile, and determine what they want of the information. And different schools in different pro organizations value the numbers differently. There are some organizations that go all in on certain metrics, and others might just be, that's important, but not as important. Everyone has their own little system on what's important to them. And that's the beautiful thing about these metrics, is you can kind of sort them how you want and make of them what you will.
I just want to know how you throw the baseball like a wiffle ball, like Blake Trinan does. Right?
Yes. And a lot of times, Major League Baseball in particular, they're looking for outliers, people that are different, people that can do something completely different than anyone else, because it's hard to hit.
Yeah, I've never seen that. You just look at that and you're like, man, it just looks like a wiffle ball, and it's at 90 some miles an hour though.
Yes.
That's what it's weird, but it just popped in my head when you said that. I was like, yeah, Blake Trinan, that's an outlier, because I don't know how he gets the ball to do that, but it's just one of those things. And that's because you see very few of those people. Like you said with Jordan Hicks, but then being able to command that and make it work for you, that's the other difficulty in that respect.
100%. And this also applies to the hitters. Like, we could dive one time into the blast motion metrics and the TrackMan metrics. There are hitters with so-called bad swings that are really good at hitting. And there's guys with good metrics that are terrible hitters. But as a whole, is bat speed important? Yes. Does it make you a good hitter? Not necessarily. You want to have it. It's a good thing to have. Bat speed is highly preferable, but there are plenty of guys with great bat speed that are bad hitters. Things like on-plane efficiency and launch angle or attack angle. Like, this stuff is all part of the equation, and you can't take it as an absolute. That's why baseball scouting is very tricky. It's not like we stack up the best guys with the best, the guys with the best bat speed are the top ranked hitter. That's not it at all. It just helps the equation.
So when we're talking about these things, and you have somebody coming up and getting ready for, say, a scout day with their club and things like that, how many of these kids, and I will tell you, I don't think there's a lot of these kids that are actually in the event that really have set themselves down and taken a look at these and started to understand the metrics. I remember one of the first times we went to an event, the actual All-State event with you over at the Sports Barn in Wentzville. I think I was talking, that was Holubowski and a lot of those guys. I forget. I think we talked with Peter and some of those kids that were at that event. Yeah. And I asked them, do you really understand the metrics, and how long did it take you to get there? And all of them were very honest and said, it took me probably a year to understand, and I think a lot of these kids were in their junior year at the time or early.
Most high school kids don't know, quite honestly. They rely on their coaches, and they shouldn't necessarily know it. As someone with young baseball players, you should pay zero attention to it, at least until you get into high school.
I agree.
Because
Right.
you just want to train becoming a better baseball player. Don't worry about what your exit velo is. Don't worry about your spin rates and all that, because it's size and mass, and a lot of that stuff is going to just change as you physically get bigger and stronger. Once we start to get to the recruiting age is when it actually matters, and that's when we're trying to make smaller gains to become better. You're already a very good player if you're Caden Pierre, for example. Now he's at the point where we can start looking to make a 1% gain, and that means something. The other piece of the metrics that we haven't touched on that is becoming a huge deal is our athletic testing. We're also now doing verified height and weight. The athletic testing, like Titus Sissel was a huge winner, and the Diamondbacks drafted Titus Sissel partly on his athletic testing. He was our top. He scored best in the athletic testing at the Super 60 last year, which is a huge deal, and helped him a lot in his draft cause. I'm not saying that's the only reason he was drafted. You can be the best athlete in the world and be a terrible baseball player, obviously. But teams look at that and say, oh man, Titus Sissel is a fast twitch guy. Here's his running time. Here's what his jumping. Here's what his recovery looks like. And they have systems that say, okay, if we take 10 of these kids, 2 of them are going to become big league all-star, an all-star or an MLB starter. Now, there'll be 6 of them that never make it. But they look at the traits that their current big leaguers have, and then they try to project this out. So the athletic testing has become a huge deal. And I'll be fully honest, I'm still learning that and don't understand all of this yet myself. And if you look at the major league organizations, they have experts in these. It's not like the general manager knows what the heck most of these numbers are. They know a good amount of them, but they have experts specifically in these. Moneyball is kind of like the classic movie, right? Like where the scouts didn't understand kind of what the nerd in the movie was talking about. And that's kind of what baseball has figured out is it takes a team. You can't be necessarily an expert in every one of these categories and understanding all this. So our job is to give as much information to these coaches, to these scouts, to these organizations so they can digest them. And, my job in the rankings is to put this all together and form the best list that I can possibly to do so. And it's quite a challenge, obviously.
Yes, it is. And I'll tell you, folks, it's true. We talk to a lot of baseball people, coaches at every level, and they don't want your job, actually, Kevin.
Yeah, I get a lot of people that say that to me. Yeah, you got a tough job.
It is. Because it's all, we can sit here and say what we want to, but it's all really speculation. You're speculating on these kids with eye test and with all the metrics and setting in a projectable scenario. It's highly
Hey, I'm always the first to say this. You look at the Major League Draft, and these are supposedly the best evaluators, and no one has more money, that's doing it. The St. Louis Cardinals, New York Yankees, the Braves, all these teams have. I don't want to say unlimited. Some have more than others, but they have tremendous resources that they sink into these decisions. We pull up these drafts and see how wrong they get it. And I'm not criticizing them. That's just how unpredictable it is. They are the best. And, it's an inexact science. They also hit on plenty. And they also hit on guys that they draft in the 20th round or didn't get drafted at all and end up being big league starters. So were people wrong when Albert Pujols was drafted in the 13th round? Or were the Cardinals geniuses? The Cardinals missed 12 times on an all-time Hall of Famer. Now, credit to the Cardinals. I'm not dissing the Cardinals at all. My point is the other 29 teams had at least 12 opportunities to draft Albert Pujols before Albert Pujols was drafted by the Cardinals in the 13th round. And I just pick him just because he's a St. Louis guy, and that one is the all-time, one of the all-time classic examples. But that's how hard and difficult this is. And I can get you all the metrics in the world, and we can stack these guys. Let's just pretend that we get them in the perfect order. Mm-hmm. Metrically speaking, we have them exactly correct, which no one actually can do that. But we'll say that we do. That still doesn't measure a player's work ethic, how he handles adversity, when things go wrong, players get injured, off the field, personality. There's so many other things that come into play. I've seen these lists. Heck, I was this type of player myself. I would be the guy that would, be ranked whatever, but not in the top 10. And I would take that as fuel to my fire as, man, this guy thinks I'm whatever. Mm-hmm. I think I'm better than that guy 20 spots ahead of me. I know I'm better than that guy. And then it kind of fuels your fire. And, a lot of the times they're not wrong. There is a floor or a ceiling to certain things. We've talked about this. What, I get one of the questions I get asked just by the younger parents or people getting into it. How hard do I have to throw to be a Division I pitcher? Well, there's no right or wrong answer to that. But if I say 88 miles per hour, most likely, I'll take the bait. I'll run with it, even though they're, well, what if the guy's a submariner, or what if he has the best slider, if he has a 3,000 spin slider or a curveball. It's a sliding scale, but roughly we'll call it 88. And obviously there's different versions of it too. Is the guy 6'4", super athletic, lean, look like he's going to fill out, or is he 5'8" with a beard and 215 pounds? That 88's different than the kid that's 6'5", 190, that was an elite athlete. It's just different. But there is a floor to some of this stuff. So you might be better today, or your high school ERA might be better than the kid ranked 20 spots ahead of you. It doesn't mean that you're more projectable to these colleges that are recruiting you. So, yeah, I have players on this list that if I had a pick to win one baseball game, I might not pick the top guy. And I'm not saying I wouldn't pick Tyler Putnam. I'm just saying there are guys down on the list that if I had to win one game, I might pick someone a little lower on the list. And if I was an MLB team, I wouldn't pick the guy I picked to win the game. I picked the guy that I'm trying to project 5, 6, 10 years out on what that guy's going to look like when he's 25, 26, 27. So that's the tricky part of the job.
Absolutely. I love that stuff. Because we're looking at, because you just look at some of these names, like a Dylan Curtis, very projectable. Although Dylan can win you some games. We've seen him, right?
Yeah. That might be my number one pick if I had to win a baseball game, to truth be told, is Dylan Curtis.
He's got some stuff. He really does. You look at a position player, a guy you want at the plate. You got Nolan Sissom there, sitting there. But down at number 10, just watching, and I haven't seen a Seton Thompson over at Ladue, but I have seen Brendan Pyle in a game. I saw him the first time I saw Brendan Pyle as a player, as a freshman at Fort Zumwalt East. This kid had such a command of the plate. I was shocked. I was like, this is not a freshman. This kid, he drew walks. He was never overwhelmed. You're not going to throw me that. That's fine. I'll take that. I'll just go take my base. He just had this presence about him that you just don't see in many freshmen taking bad at bats.
Brendan Pyle plays above his metrics. So there's a great example. He has a high baseball IQ, has a feel for hitting, the metrics can say what they want. There are guys certainly with better exit, and Brendan Pyle actually tests very well. But there are certainly guys ranked below him with higher exit velos and run a little faster or throw a little bit harder, whatnot. But Brendan Pyle is a complete baseball player. He's a high baseball IQ. He takes quality at bats. He has a track record at varsity level. That's a perfect example of kind of the topic we're talking about, why he is ranked at the very top of the rankings, more or less. Nolan Sissom also fits that mold. Brady Tanner is another guy that kind of fits that mold. Like, these guys are really, really good baseball players with a track record and good stats behind them. You could find someone with a little better metrics, but it doesn't mean that they're better baseball players than those three.
Absolutely. I think that I'm looking forward to seeing what, the Hayden Sharp kid over at Lee Summit West. What is that going to look like? Because we've got. Is he hitterish?
Yes.
And because I believe we've got, and looks like we're going to get Lee Summit West on the docket with facing off against Blue Springs, last year's state champions. So I'm looking forward to seeing Lee Summit West. Haven't seen them. That's was it the Aiken kid as well that's going to Oklahoma?
Jackson Aiken. Yeah.
Yeah. So, this is because it's always tough when you don't get to see, I see these names here, but we don't always get to see. But we've seen GT Taylor, we've seen the Grant Murhoff, and or is that the way it's pronounced, Murhoff or Merhoff or?
Yeah, Grant Murhoff.
Okay. I just want to make sure over at CBC. And I know Coach Horn always kind of downplays, but I mean, those are some talented kids. Just looking at what we see at second base, GT Taylor. I wonder if can he play the outfield too, Taylor?
He does play the outfield, and he's an interesting one. He's a versatile player. So he put down second base in that, and I've left that because he does play second base. GT can play kind of all over the field. It'll be interesting to see where he lands when he gets to college. He plays the outfield well. He can play the infield well. And he's at a school, CBC, where they've had some really good players. At a different school, he might play shortstop. But they had Nazan Zanatello, and they've had other guys that are really, really good players. So he, it's a beautiful thing. He has versatility. He can move around. So we'll see where he ends up landing. I have left his call at second base. Sometimes when we get a guy that's ranked towards the top and they don't have the position down that I actually think they are, I'll change it. With GT, we just left it as is because he's pretty versatile. He can play all of those positions.
You've got a couple of guys here. CJ Lake hasn't committed. It doesn't show any commitment. And then you see Rocco Marriott there, Platte County. But the Rocco Marriott kid, he's a quarterback, and do you think he'll go football?
I think so. I don't want to speak for the kid. I know the family well. His dad was a former tight end for the St. Louis Rams. And he has multiple Division I football offers, some of them from pretty big schools. I would think that would be how things would go, but you never know. Yeah, right. You just absolutely know it's not my job to predict. I'm not holding it against him in the rankings. You know what I mean? And, like Brett Norfleet's another great example. Like that kid, when he was a freshman, sophomore in high school, was one of the top 2 or 3 ranked kids in the state, maybe even number 1. That was even before I was on board here, and finished in the top 10. And the funny thing was he went from being the top pitcher in the state to being the top home run hitter in the state due to an injury on the mound. And now he's, likely to be an NFL tight end one day, and he's been starting since his freshman year for Mizzou at tight end. I can't, I can kind of predict, I suppose, but we're not going to take him out of the rankings because he wasn't going to play, collegiate baseball, even though he did sign to do football and baseball at Mizzou originally. So we let that stuff fly, just ride and see how it works out.
So what do you think about CJ Lake? I'm looking forward to seeing him play. We've got Oakville on the schedule this year down there.
Oakville has some talent this year. I like CJ Lake a lot. Big physical right-hander. On the mound, he's already in the low 90s. So power bat, corner guy. The next level probably first base, but plays third in high school as well. So interesting two-way talent, but a big-time arm. So he'll be one of the guys that will be fun to get out and see next spring. And I know he has multiple suitors already, but just kind of waiting and seeing what he does, taking his time with it.
It's interesting here, Kevin. Tennessee, Missouri, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisville, kind of off the beaten path there a little bit. Couple of Louisville, Drew Massey and Grant Murhoff going to Louisville. Nebraska. The outliers, I think, is it. And I didn't know this when I first saw Brendan Pyle. I'm like, Loyola Marymount. What the heck, man? But I guess from what I heard, there was one of the coaches that left with Coach Beezer. That he was.
Yes,
really
there was a Mizzou connection. So yeah, Brennan was originally committed to Missouri.
Yeah.
Decommitted, and a coach from that staff is now an assistant at Loyola, and obviously had the relationship, and they're a good program, and obviously a great baseball area. So
yeah,
that's where Pyle ended up going.
So that's just there's an outlier in that respect as far as recruiting is concerned, correct?
Yeah, and I'll also say that's a private school. So private schools kind of, you will see a more diversified roster. More of the state school stuff, it tends to be more regional.
Gotcha. Very good. I like what Evansville is doing, man. They are getting a lot of kids from this area.
They were one win away from the College World Series last year. They took, probably gave Tennessee its biggest challenge, quite honestly. They took them to a third game in the Super Regional. And Evansville has always come in and get a guy out of the St. Louis area. Kenton Deverman, has done really well over there. Mark Schallenberg. So they'll come over to Missouri and grab a guy or two. And I like Micah Patterson a lot. Athletic, left, guy out of Lee Summit. Play all three outfield spots, can get on the mound and can chuck it pretty good. Mid-80s left-hander. I think he'll probably just be a positional player for him, but you never know. But he's a good one. Evansville got a good one there.
Yeah, Lee Summit, can't sleep on them again this year. I think they're going to be right back at the top there. They had a good season last year. I think they finished over 20 wins, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens over in the Kansas City Suburban Conference this year. Jacksonville State, that one kind of surprised me with Henry Vetter.
Again, there's a Mizzou connection there. Former Mizzou head coach Steve Beezer is at Jacksonville State, so he has some ties to the area. So that's why you see him working a connection there to get Henry Vetter, who was down at the Future Games. So obviously, basically every school in the country is at the Future Games. Henry threw very well down at the Future Games, so fielded multiple offers and ended up at Jacksonville State.
Very good. I think it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing this. And with the change in the rosters now, a lot of these types of commitments here, that's based within that at this point, is it not? Or is it kind of still, teetering there a little bit?
I'm sorry, rephrase the quote. Will you say that again?
So we're seeing a lot of these 2026, with the Tennessees, the Missouris, the Kansas, Arkansas. Is this, are they recruiting now knowing full well these are their 34 roster, these kids, because we've seen a lot of kids going back into and decommitting because, of the issues with the rosters.
Yeah, I'll say that no one knows.
Okay.
They have an idea. These kids at the very top of the list are relatively safe, but the transfer portal and this has been a very slow recruiting process comparative to like 5 years ago. More kids would be committed, I would say that. But people are really slow playing because they're trying to figure out the rosters, when the rules are going to come down. We still don't have an answer of when the schools have to be down to 34-man roster. Whether that's the start of the fall, whether that's the start of the season, and that's a big deal. And so that's part of the reason the recruiting stuff has gone extremely slow. And it's also part of the reason you've seen a lot of decommitments or, I'll say decommitments, players getting let go, et cetera. It's no one's in a good spot here. The coaches are in a tough spot. The players are in a tough spot. The club coaches are in a tough spot. So I've said this on with Darren Sissel a couple times. I think it's going to be kind of a messy next 2 years. When we get through it, I hope that we're in a better place, and I think we'll ultimately be in a pretty good spot for college baseball.
There you go. Well, again, tomorrow, folks, tune in. They're going to be talking about this subject, Darren Sissel, Baseball 101 with Kevin Moulder. Make sure you tune in tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. It'll be there. We're looking forward to it. Great conversation. That's good stuff, Kevin. I appreciate it, buddy. I love the metrics piece because I think kids coming to these events, they need to know kind of what they're dealing with, right?
Absolutely.
Folks, thanks for tuning in. If you wanted to learn more, if you want to see what's going on, prepbaseballreport.com. Get the Missouri. Go to the Missouri side. All the information is there. They can just sign up. Do they have to have an account to sign up, Kevin?
Yes, you cannot register it'll loop you through the system. So you'll have to have a profile to come to an event. It won't let you sign up without creating a profile. We got to know where to put your information.
That makes
right?
sense.
If you signed up for an event and came and did all this, we wouldn't have anywhere to put your exit velo and your fastball velocity. So we got to have somewhere to put it.
39 miles an hour, baby. It's zipping.
Yeah.
Oh, it's too much BP, man. My arm's done. Funny story. I got to do this now. She said Justin had come back from college. He wants to throw and keep throwing a little bit. So I said, yeah, I'll go throw with you. And I don't know, man, we start breaking apart, and I'm like two hopping at one hop, and he's just like, Dad, come on, get it to him. I said, buddy, it's over. you got to find somebody else to play catch with. It just isn't working anymore. So, sometimes that's the way it works, right?
That's how it goes. Father Time is undefeated.
That's right. Always a pleasure, folks. If you want to follow Kevin, tell him your socials, please.
Oh, man.
I hit you with that again, didn't I? I'll tell you what. They're right down here at the bottom. Our crack engineers got them there for you. Don't worry about it. We got you taken care of, brother.
At Prep Baseball Mo and at PBR_Moulder.
There it is. Oh, look at that. That's on X and Instagram, folks. It's a great follow. Make sure you check that out. We appreciate you tuning in today. Remember, hit the subscribe button. Comment below if you got something to say about this. We'd love to hear from you. Everybody have a great day in the Lord. All you pitchers, give them the advice, Kevin.
Keep throwing strikes.
Hitters, hit a bomb or two if you can. We'll see y'all next time.